on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his...
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Listener discretion is advised. The show contains graphic language and depictions of violence. It may not be suitable for all audiences.
We say fuck a lot. Hey guys, welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Happy New Year.
Hey, it's 2021, y'all.
Man, it's been so long since we spoke to you guys. It was like, what, last year?
Oh my God. Oh, yeah. So you got first of year jokes?
I do.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I've got dad jokes. I learned them from you.
So I was at work today. I was like, I'll be writing 2020 until like February on this date. I'm that guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I always have a tough time like transitioning to a new year.
It takes a couple of months.
Well, 2020 got something right, Dylan.
Yeah, we don't have time to play around because Heather has an incredible long story, but 2020 gets a point for something good.
Yeah, we might be a little late to the game, but Samuel Little is dead.
And good riddance.
Bye, bish.
Yeah, because you do not deserve to live because you killed, who knows, maybe 100 plus women.
Yeah, no shit. Anyway, bye, bish. So that's the one thing 2020 got right.
That's the only thing good about 2020 that I can think of.
Well, we grew the podcast. That's a positive.
Well, yeah, we survived 2020.
We sure did.
I'm alive.
Let's jump in to this episode. Are you ready, Dylan?
Yes, I am. Let's do it.
Okay, well, on today's episode, Dylan, we'll be discussing one of my favorite topics. Not shoes.
Okay.
An evil woman.
Oh, my gosh. An evil woman.
Yeah.
Who's going to do something to men, I bet.
Oh, let's hope so. Just kidding. So, Dylan, why do people decide to get married?
Well, I think it's because of love.
Well, love tops the list, of course, and there's making a lifelong commitment, companionship, maybe having children, a relationship often recognized in a religious ceremony, the financial stability, and maybe for like benefits or legal rights.
Well, yeah, I think you got it all covered there.
Now let's talk about a black widow. A black widow is defined as a woman who systematically murders multiple partners, spouses, family members, or maybe someone outside the family that she's developed some kind of personal relationship. And often these atrocities are committed for one simple reason.
Monetary gain.
Money talks, baby.
Damn it.
Mountain Murders is going to bring you a story of North Carolina's Black Widow.
Oh my God, we got one of those in North Carolina?
I'm sure we have multiple Black Widows in North Carolina. You're looking at one.
You know, I always thought like the Black Widow was a fairly devious entity, you know, because they wine and dine and gain trust, and then...
I always think of the Joan Cusack character in the second Addams Family movie, and she's trying to, like, kill Uncle Fester so she can have his money.
But she doesn't know what she's up against.
No. But she's... Debbie. But Debbie's pretty evil.
Yeah, she's pretty inventive.
I think she's, like, the best Black Widow.
No, yeah, they gain their trust, and then they just ruthlessly take them out because they're either tired of them or... And like you said, it's typically for monetary gain and move on to the next one.
You see this look?
Yeah, well, I don't have any money.
Be warned.
So I don't know what you're here for.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't either. Barbara Steger has been described as a loving wife, a devoted mother, and a Christian who was a very active member of church. Barbara is also a sex-obsessed, pathological liar who spent money like crazy. And this is her story.
Oh my God, it sounds kind of like you.
What?
No, I'm just kidding.
Sex obsessed?
Yeah.
Pathological liar?
Well, you don't lie.
No, I don't.
You tell it how it is.
I'm like brutally honest to a fault. Barbara Terry was born to parents James and Marva Terry on October 30th of 1948 in Durham, North Carolina. Her parents have been called good country folks. They are hardworking, church-going, and they're both from big Durham farm families. James had a solid job with Duke Power, and his wife Marva was a secretary at Duke University Medical Center. People who knew the family said Marva definitely wore the pants, so to speak, meaning that she was the more dominant party. She had a strong personality and seemed more ambitious than her husband. While he was content with a simple life, Marva was obsessed with appearances. She wanted to keep up with the Joneses, as they say. Even though they were middle class, she kind of liked to put on airs for others.
Oh, so she was always worried about her appearance to everybody else.
Her personality was also more cold in contrast to James, who people described as being good as gold. He was quiet, easygoing, liked by just about everybody, and the kind of man who would give you the shirt off his back. So they definitely were opposites, but we all know that attracts. So after Barbara's birth, the family added a son 1 year later, a little boy named Alton. Barbara and Alton were both blonde, fair-skinned with hazel eyes, and many thought they were twins because they both had the blonde hair and they just were so close in age. Thought they were twins. And as a child, Barbara was shy and obedient, and being the firstborn, her mother had high expectations and kind of stayed on top of the young girl. And this went into adulthood. Marva could be overheard telling her daughter things like, "Stand up straight."
So would you like to be raised like that? An overbearing mom who, worried about etiquette and, was always worried about appearance to the outside people and things like that?
No.
I think that would get old.
It'd be very stifling.
Yeah, it's very stifling.
I just don't have a personality to deal with that.
And it's not going to work for you.
No. Barbara was kind of a nerdy kid. She wore thick glasses. She was always much smaller than the other kids in class. She was studious, mannerly, but teachers often noted on her report cards that she was emotionally immature. The family attended Rose of Sharon Baptist Church, and they were very active there. Barbara attended the Sunday school, Bible school. She went to choir practice, various prayer meetings growing up. But when she was 10, they moved to Ridgecrest Church because there was some kind of inner conflict among the congregation at Rose of Sharon. So kind of a split, and they moved on to a different church. Disagreement with the pastor.
Yeah, I bet.
What's that mean?
I don't know. Maybe something's going on behind the scenes.
When Barbara was in 9th grade, her father built a house on some family land, and this was north of Durham. It was kind of out in the country, away from the neighborhood she'd grown up in, and she attended Northern High School, where she was a member of the Honor Society, Future Teachers of America, and marching bands, along with her brother Alton. She played clarinet. In her sophomore year, the family welcomed a third child, her brother Steve, and Barbara doted on the new baby. But the slender, dirty blonde felt ugly. Though she was a good student, she was social, she had a friend group, but Barbara noticed that she was not pursued by boys, and this troubled her. She was raised to be a lady and was taught that an outgoing woman was considered promiscuous.
Oh my gosh.
So being a Christian, premarital sex was just hellfire. You can't do that. Even sexual fantasies themselves were considered sinful. So Barbara had repressed and conflicted teen years. Her natural fantasies and desires made her feel ashamed, so she carried around a burden of guilt.
See, that's the problem with that entire concept of, sex is bad, just putting in this certain light. It's because everyone has these feelings. They're natural.
Or masturbation is dirty.
Yeah, we're just saying.
Don't touch your privates.
Yeah, we're intelligent animals.
Don't look at
and
them.
That's it. And that's just you're gonna guaranteed to almost to have these feelings, and then have this inner turmoil, thinking you're doing something bad or something that's gonna
dirty
damn your soul to eternal hellfire.
Her home life was also strict, with Marva towering over her constantly. Barbara never talked back to her parents. She didn't drink, smoke, or sneak out of the house, and certainly never dated. By 16, her mother had helped her land a job at Duke University Medical Center in the billing department, and she kept this job until she was in college. So her teen years were spent, being a student, working a job, doing chores, babysitting her little brother, and then the after-school activities like band practice. She had little time for anything else. Busy girl.
Well, yeah, I think In a way that can be good, but sometimes you can be too busy when you're a young person.
Well, you know what they say, Dylan? Idle hands.
Idle hands touch your penis.
Yeah, they're gonna rub that. They're gonna flick that bean.
My mom used to tell me that.
That idle hands touch your penis.
Yep.
I like to say idle hands are the devil's plaything, and I am the devil.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. I don't really say that.
I think you landed me with that line when I first met you.
I did. By 1967, Barbara had graduated from high school, and though her SAT scores were not that great, they were considered very average, she was accepted at Appalachian State Teachers College in Boone, North Carolina. And we now know this as Appalachian State University.
Go App State.
Go Mountaineers.
Is that their mascot?
Yeah. But
Okay.
but they were my school's rivals, so no, don't go Mountaineers.
Boo.
Go Catamounts. Woo!
Meow.
Yeah, whatever.
We're in the woods.
Yeah, they would like have an annual battle for the jug, like the moonshine jug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet y'all got really drunk that night.
No. At college, Babwa made quick friends with her roommate, Laura, who shared a similar background. They were both raised in church, good students. Laura was dating a guy who had a friend, and it was also his roommate, a guy named Larry Ford. Now, Laura thought that Barbara should meet Larry, and they had a couple of awkward double dates together, and the introduction seemed to be kind of a flop, but soon they were a couple.
The double date, I think, I've never been on any double dates, but I think it could be a very awkward situation.
That's not true. Remember we tried to hook your friend up with my friend?
Oh, yeah, and it's exactly what I was...
And it was kind of awkward.
Like, you got the couple who's together.
Like, dinner was awkward, but then we went to the bar and everyone got hammered.
Yeah.
And that was fun.
And that was fun, but it's like...
And then we came back here, we were really obnoxious.
Yeah, well, you got the one couple who's together, for real. And then you got these new people who are meeting each other for the first time. So it's really an interesting dynamic. And that's exactly... I forgot about that. That's exactly how that date worked out. Very awkward and weird. And then we all got pretty lit.
Well, we had kind of an awkward double... I wouldn't say it was awkward, but we had a double date recently. That game night.
Oh, yeah.
With my mom.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
My mom and her friend.
Yeah, but
her
I mean...
friend.
Yeah, I don't know if I was...
So
I'm
you've been on double dates.
Well, I'm viewing it in like the, you go out to eat and then, more the traditional.
Well, I love to play matchmaker.
I know.
And it's really fun to like watch it be really horrible. It's like a weird social experiment for me.
Yeah, it's like when you talk about being out and you see people who are on like you can tell they're on their first date. You
always tell.
Yeah, and it's interesting to kind of sit back and watch them and see if they're one or the other's not feeling them.
I remember our first date. It was so natural and we were just so full of conversation that people assumed we were like a couple that we'd been together for like a long time.
Yeah, I don't think anyone knew it was our first date.
No, not at all. Well, Larry came from modest means. He was the oldest of 5 children. He was quiet, thoughtful, and dedicated to his studies. He knew his parents were working extra hard to afford tuition, so his studies were top priority while he was in Boone. Like, his mom had to take a job. His dad had to get a better job. He worked all summer. I mean, they, as a family, really had to work hard, save money for him to even be able to afford school.
Well, and it's good for him to recognize that and to be like, I'm here for school, number one.
And to be so appreciative.
Yeah, and to be appreciative and just work extra hard because of that.
Larry was an Eagle Scout, academically gifted, and a school leader. He wanted to be a teacher more than anything else. Larry truly appreciated the opportunity to attend college. He loved Boone, North Carolina, and the Blue Ridge Mountains. And Boone is a beautiful area.
Yeah, it is a beautiful place.
The mountains there are maybe a little steeper elevation, higher elevation than we get here.
Yep.
A little more rugged.
Yeah, a little to the north of us there, northeast kinda.
But absolutely beautiful place. Much to Laura's surprise, Barbara was quick to have sex with Larry. She admitted the first time she was alone with him, she jumped his bones.
So she was ready to make it happen.
She was just like, yeah, here's my V card. I'm ready to trade it in. She's like sliding it over like, let's make a deal, sir.
Your membership has been accepted.
Yeah.
And let me show you the perks of membership.
Larry was more private. He never mentioned to his parents that he even had a girlfriend in letters. Others noticed that Larry seemed to be kind of pushing Barbara away. She was just coming on too strong and too fast for this naive innocent Larry.
Well, and again, that's a responsible move on his, in a way. Hey, this might be more than I want. I want to concentrate on my work, my school, and, put your vag away and just calm down a little bit.
Little thing keeps getting out and running all around the room. I'm chasing it, and I'm
Oh my
like,
God.
get back in there, you little son of a bitch.
Your vag got out the screen door again. The neighbors damn near run it over in the driveway.
Can't keep it in my pants. Got a mind of its own.
But yeah, I mean, he's... But,
Sorry.
and from her point of view, she'd come up in this kind of overbearing household.
She's like, oh, me so horny. Me love you long time.
Everything was repressed.
Like Two Live Crew playing. She's all like, got her tits out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's out of the house and, out to where she can have a little space, and she's not playing around.
Yeah. She's like, there is a hole in my heart that can only be filled with your penis. Right?
Yeah, I've heard that song.
Yeah. Well, when Larry finally broke it off with her, Barbara showed up at her dorm room in a catatonic state. We're talking fetal position, crying, sobbing, moaning, won't speak. I mean, it was like very disturbing for her roommate. So she was hospitalized. Laura was concerned when Barbara's parents didn't show up at the hospital or even really check on their daughter. And later she wondered if this was something that maybe Barbara had done before.
Or were they made aware of the situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh. Well,
Yeah, but they didn't even bother. So, it got Laura to thinking like, maybe this is something that she's done before, like for attention.
well, that's possible. I mean, it is interesting if you hear her describe her parents, how they were very, very hands-on, maybe almost too much. And then they hear this, and that neither of them, especially her mom, doesn't rush there to, control the situation, find out what's going on.
Well, regardless, you would think if you found out your child,
Isn't a
college-age child, was in the hospital,
right?
you would be concerned.
Kind of non-responsive and like to the point where it's disturbing people around her. Yeah, it is a little weird.
Well, soon after her release, she and Larry resumed their relationship. So this appeared to be some kind of manipulation, to keep Larry. And it worked.
That's not cool.
By the end of freshman year, Barbara was pregnant.
Damn it. Damn it, she milked Larry dry.
Oh, God. Well, by dates, it appeared as if Barbara had gotten pregnant soon after the hospital incident. So she had definitely trapped Larry now. They were married on May 21st, 1968. Because Larry wanted to do the right thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand that sentiment, honestly. I mean, I've been there before and done that, but that can't be you got to have more reason to get together and stay together.
Well, you live and you learn.
Than just be pregnant. But this is 68. Back then, that was, all this was viewed a certain way. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
And Larry grew up in a very conservative Christian family. His family had actually been Quakers.
Oh.
And then started attending like a Methodist church. So they were very like conservative Christians. Barbara wanted to drop out of school and get a job. Larry was determined his fresh marriage and the new baby on the way would not deter him from completing his degree program. When the Fords met Barbara for the first time, they were less than impressed. His parents, again, they're conservative Christians, they were shocked at Barbara's displays of affection. There was no modesty, and it bordered on just improper.
Damn, she's not even toning it down around his parents?
No, like hands all over him, like trying to French kiss him and make out, and like right in front of his parents.
Yeah, I think I would be uncomfortable right now if we were at my mom's in, Chapel Hill and you were doing that. I mean, that would be, or I wouldn't do that in front of your mom. It's just,
we don't really carry on like that in front of our parents.
Yeah, I mean, even in public displays, hugs, holding hands, kisses, or something like that. But even then, like full on making out, that's just, I don't know, that's a little much.
His mother Doris felt uncomfortable, and there was something about her new daughter-in-law that was just off-putting. Of course, I mean, there's an adjustment anytime your child brings home a new wife or husband, even a boyfriend or girlfriend, I guess. But it was just something more than that.
So it was the assless chaps and the crotchless panties? Maybe that's what was throwing her off.
You think so?
Maybe. You always got to have access to that thing.
Oh, gosh.
Rubbing it all over Larry's leg and stuff.
The stanky leg?
Yeah.
Okay, Dylan, stop.
Oh.
Okay, we're grossing people out. You
Oh.
have to forget it's not just us carrying on here, dude. We've got like other people involved in this situation.
They'll understand.
They're either at home laughing or they're like turning us off.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Well, Barbara's newfound freedom had her feeling that she could do exactly what she wanted without anyone's rules. And Doris even thought that Barbara's behavior was almost like a challenge to her. Like, you can't stop me kind of thing.
Well, I mean, they're meeting this girl for the first time or just now been around her, and she's acting this way. And so, yeah, I guess that would be a bit, even if it didn't make you mad or totally hate this person, you'd be like, that's just, something, it's a little strange.
Get a room.
Yeah, what the hell?
Larry, though a newlywed, continued to have reservations about his new wife. He started to withdraw from her. Barbara's strong sexual urges also drove a wedge between the couple, not to mention that her spending habits, they were just out of control. The young couple moved in with his parents outside of Greensboro, and I think it's called Colfax, North Carolina, really small little town. And they both got jobs. And though Larry was working to save money for the baby, he knew his ultimate goal was to get back in school. The Terrys helped the couple buy a mobile home, and Larry was able to save up and get a car. And they were doing okay. Soon, Larry was able to put money aside for his return to college.
So he can get back in there, finish his degree. Because, well, now you got a baby and a woman, so I guess it would maybe you really need to get that degree and, get your job and start making money and all that.
By fall, he returned to Boone while Barb stayed behind and worked. She was quickly disenchanted with the direction in which her life was going. Barbara hated living in a trailer. She felt it was beneath her, living out in the country, and she was angry that Larry was off at school. Now, here's a person who put themselves in the situation and then immediately, resents it.
Well, that's interesting. But, yeah, I mean, she controlled, it sounds like she helped them arrive at this situation. Well, I mean, you're both having sex and you're both responsible and all that. But, I mean, she it's almost like she insisted on getting to this point and then instantly regrets it.
By October, she had quit her job, saying that she was on bed rest for complications, though she didn't seem to have anything wrong with her. She watched television all day and fell into a deep depression. On December 2nd, 1968, son James Bryan was born in Greensboro. Larry was a proud papa. At the hospital, as soon as Larry's parents walked into the room to see their new grandchild, Barbara grabs Larry, passionately kissing him, and she even tried to put hickeys on his neck.
God, man.
He was very embarrassed in front of everybody and tried to laugh it off. But his family said it was so clear that he felt very uncomfortable. After Brian's birth, Larry got a job managing Ivy Hall on campus. He moved Barbara and Brian into an apartment there and worked at Sears part-time to make ends meet. The young family was on a tight budget. Larry's grades slipped as he took on more responsibility. After the pregnancy, Barbara was so brazen about sex. They seemed to have unmatched sexual needs as a couple because Barbara wanted to have sex several times a day. And Larry was overwhelmed, distracted, and his sex drive just wasn't compatible with hers.
Damn, he's just going around sipping Gatorade all the time, eating protein bars, trying to keep up.
Barbara then commenced to always talking about these men who hit on her in an effort to make Larry jealous.
Well, that could definitely cause some friction in a relationship, two very quite different sex drives.
You think so?
Well, people are seldom exactly alike, But, I mean, being, that different kind of other ends of the spectrum or scale there, yeah, don't you think so? Because one's going to not want it as often, and then sounds like she has an insatiable appetite, honestly.
Yes.
3 or 4 times a day? That's pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah, don't you think?
No. It should be 10 times a day.
Oh, yeah.
After he finally graduated from college in 1970, the Vietnam War was still raging on. Larry knew his college deferment wouldn't last long, so he took the Air Force aptitude test. Barbara was mad as hell and threw a hissy fit about the idea of him enlisting.
Well, it sounds like he thought he might not have a choice.
But one day, she told him that she'd stopped by the draft board and knew his name was at the top of the list. So Larry joined the Marine Corps Reserves since he was in danger of being drafted. He went to basic training in San Diego, and later he would find out that his name was not on a draft list, that Barbara had lied.
See, that's conflicting thoughts there. I mean, you're mad that he may go away again in a sense, but then you kind of lie to him and push him into doing it.
Meanwhile, she's living with his parents. They sell the trailer, and the Fords were happy to have their grandson Brian in the house. I can never say her name. Barbara was working, but soon began staying out late, like really taking advantage of these free babysitters and the free childcare.
Well, imagine how a little bit strange or uncomfortable it'd be for now she's living with the parents, who it sounds like from the beginning were kind of found her off-putting at the very least. So yeah, I'm sure that was kind of a weird dynamic.
She would stay out very late at night, and when she returned, she was bubbly, giggly. Doris suspected that she was cheating on Larry, but she didn't want to throw around accusations. So, being a good mother, wanted to protect her son, so she just kept her mouth shut. In October of 1970, Barbara moved out of his parents' house and into an apartment in High Point, where she took a job as a bank teller. I should also mention that she was flashing some cash and had some expensive items, and kept saying that she was offered this $200 bonus or $300 bonus to take this job. And his parents thought that was very strange because at the time that would have been maybe $1,900 in today's money.
Yeah.
And here she is, no college degree, not a lot of work experience. A bank is going to just recruit her and pay her a big sign-on bonus.
Well, yeah, that doesn't even sound real at all. I mean, that banks are giving sign-on bonuses to anyone. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous.
When Larry returned, the couple settled into married life. Barbara was unhappy, though. Her coworkers thought Barbara was kind of snobby and acted like she was better than everybody. Barbara was spending money as soon as it came in. She bought herself expensive clothes, jewelry, and she always wanted more materially, like a bigger house. She complained about living in an apartment. She wanted a nicer car. Nothing was ever good enough.
Oh my God, does she have a sister? Because she just sounds like such a gem to live with.
Larry was not materialistic at all, and Barbara made coworkers feel uncomfortable with her permissive attitude about sex. She was very flirty with customers at the bank and other males in the office. If a man was anywhere near Barbara, she turned it on, too friendly and sometimes too personal with customers. And it brought attention.
I'd like to cash this check. Hey, what's going on? You're so sexy. The way you endorse that check, it's really making me wet.
Here's some 20s. I wish I was rubbing them on my body.
Oh, gosh.
At one point, Barbara allegedly went on a girls' trip to the beach with some women from the bank. But during the trip, a female anonymously called Larry to ask, "Do you know where your wife is?" And then hung up.
Oh, my God.
So Larry low-key discovers his wife is cheating. He becomes even more withdrawn. So after about 5 years into the marriage, Barbara presses him to buy a house, and they find one in a subdivision. Barbara bought expensive new appliances, though the ones in the house were practically new. She decorated with expensive furniture, which she thought was a status symbol. The Fords were deeply in debt. Nothing ever seemed to make her happy. She just always wanted and needed more. Larry was so stressed out that by 25, his hair was turning gray.
Well, why in the world would you go in deeper with everything after, you already have these issues in your relationship? What's Larry thinking?
She then starts having an affair with a guy named Ken Hazelwood, or Butch, as he was called. Butch was a rough character with a lot of ties to criminal activity, and he would later be murdered.
Just randomly in some other circumstance?
Unsolved.
Really?
Yeah. And interestingly enough, it's the same caliber gun that will come into play later in the story.
Okay.
Barbara has several friends and acquaintances who are murdered throughout the story.
Really?
Suspiciously. Yeah. So years later, Barbara's lovers would say she was a nymphomaniac, hypersexual, all night long, and she never seemed sexually satisfied. I mean, nympho has such a negative connotation because that just implies that, there's something like wrong with her when there are men who go out and do the same things. I mean, to me, she's a sex addict, I think.
Well, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with having a really strong sex drive. It just helps if your partner, if you're in a alleged monogamous relationship, it helps if your partner has a similar sex drive.
Yeah. Well, by December of 1973, Barbara is pregnant again with her son, Jason Andrew Ford. He'd be born in July of 1974. Larry had gotten a better job as an office manager for an electrical company, and he was making more money, but Barbara was still on a spending spree. She had a tubal ligation after her son Jason was born. The marriage was more strained than ever, and the pair drifted further apart. Soon after Jason's birth, Barbara was having an affair with another bank customer. Between summer and November of 1974, so that's just a couple of months, right? She had at least two affairs.
Why even be in a relationship? I mean, really, just leave them and go move in by yourself. Well, I think I know the answers to why not, but I don't know how you claim to be with someone and keep having affair after affair. I know things happen in relationships or can happen, but just that seems very malicious, over and over, always wanting to kind of shock people, talking about sex and being a little crude, which that can just be, someone's sense of humor too, but I don't know. It just seems mean to me to keep doing that to Larry.
Like she's a dirty bitch?
Well, no, I wouldn't say it like that.
I would. I just did. By November, she finally leaves Larry and moves into an apartment near her bank job. She's having another affair, so this is like the third lover in just a few months.
It's like she's got an ad in the paper.
Barbara tells people that she's going to marry this guy. She's pushing him to make more of a commitment, but this guy sees Barbara as just like a casual sexual affair or fling. Larry's only seeing his kids like 1 weekend a month. Were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Oh, I would be like, if I'm sorry, carry on. He's only seen his kid. Are they separated?
Yeah, she moves into an apartment by herself near the bank, leaves Larry.
Okay.
Yep. And Larry's the one that goes and files for separation. But she's only allowing him to see the kids once a month, 1 weekend a month, and it's destroying him. He sinks into a depression. He misses his kids. After being dumped by her lover, the third lover, Barbara moves back to Durham, and she's rehired at Duke Medical Center as a secretary this time. Larry offers to rekindle the marriage. I mean, he misses his kids so badly. Barbara offers to let him take Brian and that she'll just keep the baby Jason. And he refuses this deal. I should also state that throughout, we will see that Barb kind of plays favorites with her boys. It seems that Jason, the youngest, is definitely her favorite, while Brian receives the butt of her frustrations.
Favorites is just not cool at all. I don't care if it's your kids. I don't care if you have stepkids. It seems like one of those things that can really be detrimental to a child's mental health growing up. And it's just really not cool.
Well, nothing confirms this, but the first thing that popped in my mind when I was reading this information is that maybe Jason doesn't belong to Larry.
Well, I mean, how could you not?
Maybe that's her favorite because that's like, she doesn't like Brian because he's Larry's, but maybe Jason belongs to a lover.
Well, I mean, how could you not think that, really? As promiscuous as she obviously has been.
Well, it popped in my brain. I thought I had to share it with you guys. But, he's begging. He wants to get back together. And as soon as they get back together, because Barbara is racking up more debt, she's not really making enough money to support herself. She gets back together with him and decides she wants to get her real estate license. But she turns out not to be a very good salesperson. She goes to work at a real estate company. Then she starts having more affairs, some with coworkers, and Barbara is enamored with the woman who owns the agency. Her name is Kay Pugh. Kay is wealthy. She's put together. She dresses impeccably, lives in like a really nice house, drives expensive sports cars, convertibles. Barbara idolizes Kay, and she wants a life just like hers. Then Barb starts telling people that she thinks someone is stalking her.
Oh my gosh.
She starts telling everyone that someone's following her. She just knows it. She thinks she has a stalker. She tells Larry how worried she is. Now, during this time, I should mention, Larry has started focusing on Taekwondo. He finds this to be an escape, and he practices and works very hard to earn the different belts and go to competitions.
I know why she's not a good real estate agent.
Why is that?
Because she keeps throwing these open houses, and people show up, and it's just like her in there with her legs up in the air with a plate of finger foods beside her ass.
She's like, open house?
Yeah.
That is a little TMI.
It's her vagina.
Yeah, you're being a little... You need to tone it down, sir.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Save that for your Pornhub TikTok video or whatever.
I don't do that.
With Larry gone late nights at practice, Barbara says she feels scared being alone. She wants to buy a gun. So with a letter of character written by her pastor, on March 22nd, 1978, Barbara buys a .25 caliber pistol.
So you got to have a letter of character in this state?
I think back in the day when you were a woman, you did.
Oh, well, that's messed up if it's just for the women, and it's interesting, period.
But Larry is in agreement that, maybe she does need to get a gun. Things maybe are dangerous out there. I mean, she's got him convinced that she's got the stalker. About 12 hours after Barbara buys a gun, Larry is shot in the chest.
Damn.
Upon calling 911, Barbara claims to first responders and later to police that 29-year-old Larry Ford was kicked in the groin during his Taekwondo class. So he's got a sore junk, and he was uncomfortable tossing and turning, so she decided to sleep downstairs on the couch. At some point, she hears a loud noise, and when she comes upstairs, she finds her husband on his back, draped over the bed with a gunshot wound to the chest. She says Larry must have picked up the new gun to check it out and accidentally shot himself.
Yeah, right.
Well, this seems plausible to law enforcement, and they rule the death accidental.
Well, they must have had their reasons for that.
The next day, when friends learn the news and they show up to help clean the upstairs bedroom for Barbara, they're suspicious because there are some suitcases that seem to be packed in the corner. Barbara explains she and Larry had planned to take a trip to her parents' beach cottage. Knowing how organized Barbara is, they find this story believable. But Larry's family is skeptical. Nothing about Larry's death makes sense to them. Larry was a country boy who grew up shooting and practiced gun safety. They had a hard time believing he could be so careless and just pick up a pistol without checking first to see if it was loaded.
Well, I mean, if you raise your children that way, they're around guns, you sporting, shot for fun, hunting, any of that, and they were comfortable with guns, I mean, I would find it suspicious.
Barbara also insisted the funeral be the following day. Larry's parents wanted to give it a few days so family and friends could attend. Larry's brother also overheard Barbara alone with her mother crying and saying, "What have I done?"
Oh.
Before quickly quieting herself when she realized they were in the room. Let's pause for a moment and take a break, Dylan. And we're back, Dylan.
Hey.
Are you ready to continue?
Yes, let's move along.
The funeral was equally as questionable as Barbara's behavior was strange. The new widow acted like it was a social gathering rather than a solemn event. She flitted around, playing hostess, laughing, talking. Barbara wasn't visibly disturbed by her husband's death and instead seemed to be relishing the attention she was getting.
Yeah, though everyone is different with grief, and it comes out in so many forms, and it's hard to say how someone's supposed to act. But that is if I was at that funeral, wouldn't you find that strange? Or wouldn't you comment? I mean, you'd be talking about it like, oh, damn.
Probably, but I think about it sometimes. I'm a private person, like with my emotions, and I don't like to cry in front of other people or show that I'm upset. I don't know.
Right.
I have a hard time with that. So I think people might talk badly about me or
Because you may put on this like different persona because you're not going to be this way in public,
probably
and maybe put on kind of this fake.
maybe not. I don't know.
I
mean,
guess
I've
you
never
don't
been
know.
in this situation,
Right.
but I just know I'm kind of private, so I understand people who don't just sit and cry and do the hysterically, the hysterical thing and cry and agree, I don't know, because for me it's more of like a private thing.
Yeah, and everybody is different, but considering everything, what the parents and his family, his parents already think kind of about her, it's not going to help their view of her.
No, I mean, in the story, I think Barbara's just I'm going to say it again, she's just a dirty bitch.
Right.
Okay. Well, after the funeral, Barbara gives away all of Larry's clothing and personal items. Her brother Alton is wearing Larry's leather jacket, which Larry's brother is kind of mad about this. His parents and siblings are bothered by all of this stuff because it seems like she just can't wait to clear out Larry's stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the way it seems.
She files a handwritten will, like immediately after Larry has passed away. It was on the back of a Marine Reserve paper and dated July 12th, 1975, which was soon after they had reconciled from their separation.
Now, doesn't that need to be filed with a lawyer by Larry and things of that nature to make it legal?
It wasn't notarized,
yeah.
but Barbara had signed it along with Larry. Of course, this wasn't necessary, as Barbara was set to inherit everything that belonged to her husband by law anyway.
But even, again, she's moving kind of fast with things. Like, it's like you're more worried instead of just figuring, you have to figure these financial things and all that stuff out eventually. And sometimes people can't bring themselves to do that, even because of grief or just the finality of it. But yeah, I mean, it's just one more thing.
She doesn't
she can't
skip a
wait,
beat, man.
dude. I mean, it's like she wants to clear everything
It's not
out.
miss a beat.
And just like with her brother, Larry may have always wanted him to have that jacket for all we know, but lumped in with everything else. It just looks weird. It looks weird.
Larry's parents didn't want to believe that Barbara had a hand in Larry's death, but as time went on, it made the most sense. Larry's death also had a ripple effect. As I mentioned before, there are several other murders tied to the situation, or tied to Barbara or acquaintances. This is where the story gets a little strange. Barbara's boss, Kay Pugh, from the real estate agency, and her friend Brenda were murdered soon after by Tommy Wilmoth, who was Brenda's ex. Tommy was convinced that the three women, Barbara, Kay, and Brenda, were involved in a lesbian love triangle that involved a plot to murder their husbands.
Damn, Tommy.
Larry was the first victim of this plan. So this rumor sweeps through the community. It finally made its way to investigators at the sheriff's office, who already thought the death was unusual. So the original patrolman on the scene may have ruled it accidental, but investigators found it odd, detectives. One detective suspected that Larry was murdered and got a judge to sign off on exhuming Larry's body.
So, even if they are in a lesbian triangle, love triangle, whatever, that's their business. And so, is this one of the affair's boyfriends, or when they were on break, Larry and Barbara were on a break or separated? The ex-boyfriend, Tommy?
Tommy is Brenda's ex-boyfriend.
Oh, Brenda, I'm
Brenda
sorry.
Wilmoth and Kay Pugh were like best friends.
Okay.
They were together and were shot by this guy, Tommy.
Oh, okay,
Who
I'm
was
sorry.
Brenda's ex.
I'm sorry.
And he was convinced that these three women were like in cahoots,
Oh, my God.
plotting to each murder their ex-husbands or their husbands.
Damn.
Yeah.
That'd be a hell of a club to be in.
Wouldn't that be that'd be a great movie?
That would be a great movie.
Maybe,
What would you
let's write that.
call it? Love Triangle. No, that was a shitty title. Move on.
Okay.
Okay.
I should also mention that the original patrolman on the scene that ruled it accidental then became sheriff later on. And a little peek into his investigation reveals that it was a very shoddy investigation.
His original investigation?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, you would have to take a nice, long, hard look at this and get everyone's opinion, I think, instead of just being like, oh, yeah, looks like this guy shot, accidentally shot himself.
Well, this one detective that suspected Larry was murdered, he gets a judge to sign off on exhuming the body. An SBI test reveals that there's no gun residue on Larry's hands, so he didn't fire the gun. Larry's death is then reclassified as a homicide. But with only one piece of evidence, the district attorney doesn't want to pursue the murder charge and asks detectives, like, you need to go find more evidence.
See, that right there tells me this was a shoddy investigation in the beginning because, I mean, that's not that hard of a test to do. Gun residue.
No autopsy, like nothing.
Yeah, I mean, at least check his hand, make sure he fired a weapon, recently. I mean, come on.
In the meantime, other murders are taking place, and then this new sheriff is elected, who was the patrolman on the initial call, and doesn't want to further this case against Barbara. So it just kind of goes cold in a file cabinet.
Because he doesn't want to look bad.
Right. Yeah, because then it would show that he didn't do his fucking job. And he's the sheriff, so he's just like, forget about it. Life insurance starts getting paid out, including $26,326 on one policy. Then there's another for $44,902. So Barbara gets more than $70,000 in money. But there's still another policy that hasn't paid out because the company learns that Larry's death might not be accidental. And if it's an accidental death, it's going to pay out double. So they hold off on paying her.
Until they make sure how he died, all that.
Right. So they kind of keep hounding law enforcement like, we need an answer on this. And so in the meantime, they're just like not paying Barbara until they figure it out.
And his death at this point has been reclassified as a homicide.
Yes.
Okay.
Barbara proceeds to sell this house in High Point and decides it's time to relocate the family near her parents in Durham. So while staying with her parents, she finds a house in their neighborhood. It's a brick bungalow that happens to be for sale, like a for sale by owner. So one day, Barbara pops by the house and knocks on the door. It is there that she meets a man named Russ Stager. He explains that the house is for sale because he has recently split from his wife, but he's also having reservations about selling it.
Oh, and Barbara's like, I have a hell of a deal for you.
They chat, and then Barbara goes on her way, continuing her house hunt. While staying with her parents, she starts attending Ebenezer Baptist Church with them. She becomes very active, bringing the boys along to Sunday school and all of the various church services. Of course, people have heard that she recently lost her husband, so they try to welcome her like good Christians into the fold, like make her feel like she's part of the community, and they want to be friends with her and, just kind of help her along. Barbara makes a lot of friends at church, and some people her age are going on a retreat to the beach, and they invite Barbara to attend. So while she's on this church beach trip, Barbara meets a single man that's around her age, and they hit it off, and soon Barbara is seducing him.
Oh my gosh, Barbara.
They manage to sneak away from the group and have sex. He thinks it's a one-time hookup and even feels guilty having given into this temptation. But living with her parents cramps her style. So soon she buys a house that is actually across the street from that bungalow that was owned by Russ Stager. This way she can have sex anytime she wants and invites her new lover over often. Not only is Barbara hooking up with this new guy for sex, she starts pursuing him, saying that she's ready to get married again. And he thinks it's very soon, like her husband just died just a few months before.
Well, I think anyone's going to think that.
And he's not ready for a wife and kids. I mean, he thought this was just casual sex and didn't expect it to go anywhere or that they would even have sex more than once. And he ends up breaking it off with Barbara.
Well, he needs to know that's how the devil works.
How?
You have sex with this chick on a
Leading you
church
to temptation?
retreat, and next thing you know, you got a wife and kids.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
Yeah.
Okay. The Dark Lord has done this to you. But Barbara, who has blown through a great deal of money already, has set her mind on finding a new husband.
Sounds like she needs to find a job.
Before long, Barbara has set her sights on a new man. And can you guess who it is?
I knew it. I knew it.
Who?
Russ across the street.
Her neighbor Russ.
Damn it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just figured she was going to, when she made the offer on the house, he's like, well, I don't really know if I want to sell, blah, blah, blah. Me and my wife just split. She'd be like, well, I have a good deal for you. How about I just move in, start banging you, and then, I'm going to cheat on you a lot and possibly kill you later for a monetary gain.
We're vulgar. I have a joke. Why did Barbara cross the road?
Why did Barbara cross the road?
To get some dick.
Hey, that's good.
Okay.
That's
my dad joke for the day.
That's a good joke.
Okay. Russ Steger was considered a solid, dependable guy. He was employed as a physical education teacher and an assistant coach with Durham City Schools. As I mentioned before, he had recently split from his wife, JoLynn. He was living alone and heading toward divorce. He met JoLynn when she was working a concession stand at a high school football game, and the pair dated 6 years before getting married.
Well, that's a long time.
Students loved Russ. He was caring, thoughtful, a great teacher. He often used his own money to buy students athletic equipment and even groceries for the less fortunate kids in his class or on his teams. He would take these kids' uniforms home to wash and mend.
Well, he sounds like a great guy.
In high school, Russ had been a natural athlete. He grew up playing sports. He loved water sports like water skiing and swimming, wakeboarding, all of that stuff, kneeboarding. His family had a boat. They would go to the lake pretty often. And he loved football and baseball. In junior high, he had some injuries from playing football, so he had to quit playing by high school. But he focused on baseball and, of course, other sports. He knew he wanted to be a high school coach. Russ had a magnetic personality that allowed him to move from group to group in high school and to fit in with most everybody. His laugh was described as infectious, and women loved him. One high school friend said he had a Robert Redford type of appeal.
Oh, my gosh. I'm
Yeah.
glad you went nowhere near Russ.
Oh, Robert Redford is pretty hot, although I'm more of a Paul Newman girl myself.
Yeah, but either of those guys young were pretty hot.
They both were, gorgeous.
Yeah.
I think Brad Pitt has a Robert Redford type of appeal.
He has that old school kind of, hot,
Rugged.
rugged. Yeah.
All-American boy, but kind of rugged.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
The way you're moving around when you talk about that.
That's right, baby.
Am I like that?
No.
Oh.
No. You're just like a friendly, snuggly bear
Oh. A hot, friendly, snuggly bear?
that shovels food in his mouth and then takes a nap and snores.
Yeah.
Like a bear in
Yeah.
a cave hibernating.
Yeah, baby, get some.
Yeah. Well, I'm a chubby chaser.
Oh, you don't have to chase me no more, girl. You caught me.
Well, I can't chase you too far anyway. You get winded.
Well, I mean, there's that.
Girls flocked to Russ. He was also into appearances, making sure that he kept physically fit, he dressed well, and always looked good. Later, this would bleed over into his coaching style. He would tell his athletes and students, if we can't win, we're going to look good losing.
I like that.
His philosophy, and he would actually be quoted later in a newspaper article about sports, that he felt sports were a preparation for life. He felt it was a necessity for kids to play sports to learn important life lessons like teamwork, losing with grace, and always putting forth your best effort. He saw sports as a confidence booster too.
Yeah, I think you can learn a lot of important lessons from sports. That's why it always weirds me out when I see parents who totally lose their shit at Little League games and stuff and want to fight the referee and stuff. Like what your kids are watching.
Oh man, I remember
Other
a
people's
few
kids
years
are
ago,
watching.
locally on our local news station. There was a viral video that had somehow gotten on Facebook
That
and
went
made
nationwide,
it to the
didn't it?
news station, and it was some people from our community with a travel ball team that got into parents getting into fist fights with this other team's parents.
Yeah, dude, it was in Charlotte or something,
It was
wasn't it?
grown adult men fighting each other while these little kids are standing out on the baseball field what's going on?
What kind of example? I mean, that's just pretty gross.
That's pretty redneck.
In a bad way. There's plenty of good redneck stuff.
No, totally. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's when people make fun of redneck, that's what they're thinking about.
Well, that's trash is what it is.
Well, there's a difference between being country and kind of being redneck.
And trash.
Yeah. Well, he attended Campbell College, and upon graduating, he entered a job as a PE coach and teacher. He and Jolene were married on October 18th of 1974. She got a job working for a tobacco company, but the marriage was in trouble almost immediately. Within the first year, she discovers Russ having an affair with a student.
Oh my God. Russ can have an affair on Barbara now before Barbara can have an affair on Russ.
He stayed out all night, and when she finds him at a friend's apartment, she sees the friend leaving with this young teenage girl and confronts the friend. And Russ's friend tells her, "You need to talk to Russ." Jolene recognizes this quality in her husband. She thinks that he wants to remain a big, playful boy forever and that he's just not suited for marriage. So after the cheating incident, the marriage is never the same. The couple soon starts discovering that they're not even a good match at all. They don't have any common interests. Russ is consumed with sports. It's all he wants to do, all he talks about. She has no interest. They don't particularly enjoy each other's company. And by 1978, they have an amicable split, both parties realizing that this marriage just isn't meant to be. And the story about how they came to this decision is they were both home and like the television went out and the power went out. And I guess they were just sitting there in this like awkward silence.
Oh my gosh.
And she says, "I think maybe we need to separate." And he's like, "Yeah, I think you're right."
So they just it's totally obvious they shouldn't be together.
So by 1978, they've split up. And soon after they break up, Russ begins dating a 17-year-old girl who happens to be a student at the high school.
Well, I mean, that's inappropriate on so many levels. We talked about it before recently in the Pamela Smart story, or Pam Smart, if you will, story. But
That's
it's also
Pam with an E, Dylan.
It's also a sign of someone who is rather immature themselves. So
Yeah, that's what I think. Like he's sort of stuck in high school.
Right. Some people can't ever get over their high school, especially if they were popular, athlete, things of that nature. Some people just can't get over it and move on. And on top of being inappropriate, I think it's kind of sad, really, when you see these people that just can't get over being in high school and like almost regret being an adult instead of embracing it.
I know I'm really judgy, but when I see people who consistently date much younger partners or always have a much younger boyfriend or girlfriend,
Men and women.
I always assume like you must be really emotionally immature.
Because you can't cut it with people anywhere near your age.
Yeah. And it's so much easier to impress someone that young.
Yep.
And you really don't have anything to talk about.
And that doesn't
There
necessarily...
becomes such a generation gap or like such, decades difference that it's like, what? You don't even like the same fucking music or movies.
Well, you're not even going to have the same pop culture references from... this doesn't obviously apply to every relationship. But in general, I think you're right. You're not even going to... You didn't grow up with the same thing, seeing the same big events in your life, even, big events in the world. I mean, you just... if I'm sitting here talking to if I'm dating some 19, 21-year-old girl and I'm talking about Tiananmen Square, when the man stands down the tank holding a bag of groceries, she's not going to know what the fuck I'm talking about.
I got my picture taken there one time when I went to New York, and I was like standing in the middle of Tiananmen Square, and like I got this really amazing photo, and I put it on Instagram, and I got like 70 likes.
Yeah. And then I'm like, well, what am I doing in this relationship? And then she gets her 19-year-old boobs out.
Oh.
No, but I would never date that far apart for so many reasons.
I am disgusted by your behavior.
That was a stupid joke.
I don't want to be with somebody younger.
No.
I'm trying to potty train some dude.
Well, it's like we talked about just the other day.
I
Like
have daddy issues. I like them older.
You're being able to interact and have fun and similar interest and all that in conversations and things like that and laugh together, similar sense of humor, things of that nature, I think are way more important because the sex is a very small time period during a relationship. You spend a lot more time, just being together.
Just doing regular stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty important if you can communicate and kind of, have a normal, intelligent conversation with someone.
Yeah, I remember like one time, and looking back now, I'm like, that guy was kind of a creep. I was like 20. I wasn't even old enough to drink, and met this guy, and he played in a band, kind of through some friends. He was like 30.
Ooh.
I mean, it wasn't like that crazy of an age. I mean, it's 10 years, right?
No, but I think
But I was like, oh, he's super hot, right? We go out to dinner or something, and then we go back to his house, and he owns the house, which, of course, in my 20-year-old brain, I was like, ooh, impressed. He owns a house, right? Well, he's fucking 30.
well, yeah.
But then he starts bringing out, he had a collection of Kiss dolls in their original packaging, and is like showing me his collection of Kiss dolls and like talking about music and just like pop culture stuff from back in the day. And it reminded me too much of my stepdad, who also like, I guess, liked Kiss and would talk about having these Kiss dolls.
Yeah, and when he saw Kiss.
And I was just like, oh my God. Like I couldn't go back out with him again.
Well, see, that's one of those.
It weirded me out.
I think those, like a 30 and 40 is different than 30 and 20.
Well, there's life experiences are so different
Because
from the time you're 20 to 30.
And I think you can have a successful relationship being even 10 or 15 years. But I think when someone's a rather young adult, and you have put on 10 or 15 years between their partner, I mean, it can be tricky for so many reasons.
And this is a sneak preview of Heather and Dylan's Dating and Relationship podcast. Tune in later for more.
Yeah, who am I to tell anybody anything?
Advice. I know. I'm like, we're both fucked up.
So here we got Russ.
So Russ is really
Joanne?
into this high school girl.
Yeah.
No, Jolynn
was
her name.
Yeah, there's just a lot of character. You know me.
I know a Jolynn, and you know what? She's a bitch.
I'm slow, so I'm trying to keep up. But so Russ and Jolynn have split, and now he's with the super young 17. I mean, come on.
She's only 17.
And she's a student at the school he works at.
Yeah.
So it's
he's
just
with
not
Lolita.
Cool. Okay.
Right? So Russ is really into, I'm just going to call her Lolita. He's really into this girl. But she's afraid to tell her parents, and she keeps the relationship a secret. And Russ keeps pressing her, like, tell your parents. I don't want to have to hide.
Well, Russ just wants to put it all out there so everybody can see he's with this young girl.
But she knows the expectation is that she's going to go to college, and this relationship would disappoint her parents and that they would never accept it. So she's like, I'm not going to tell anybody. And during this time, Barbara is invited to attend one of the high school football games with friends. A mutual friend introduces her to Russ Steger. She recognizes him from the house buying, the little visit she made.
Well, it sounds like he was a bit of a handsome dude and all.
And soon after, she is hardcore crushing on this handsome, newly single coach. And by this time, his young girlfriend has gone off to college. And the distance creates problems, and she eventually breaks it off with him, realizing, I mean, they don't have a future together.
No, it'd be almost impossible for them to have a relationship.
Once she ends the romance, Russ begins seeing Barbara. And only a few weeks into the relationship, Barbara is telling people she wants to marry Russ.
Barbara, girl. It's okay to be single.
Later on, Barbara will use their story as a basis for a romance novel that she writes.
Oh, and it's called Put Me in Coach.
I'm ready to play with your dick. Oh, sorry.
What did you... Clean it up a little bit. I mean, we've had enough lowbrow humor in this episode.
It's your fault. you do this to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm around you, and then my immaturity drops. And so do my social graces.
And that's okay.
So by this time, Barbara has taken a job at Security Federal Savings and Loan. On her first day of training, money goes missing from the register. The employee who is training Barbara decides she needs to keep an eye on this one. During her time as an employee with this bank, money begins to go missing. Barbara is passing off these bad checks to pay her mortgage. She asks for cash advances to buy her son's Christmas presents. And noticeable amounts of money continue to go missing from her drawer, ranging from like $20 up to $200.
Who would have thought at a bank that they would actually keep track of the money that is handed out? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, right? Who knew? Finally, her managers sit Barbara down for a talk, and they address the multitude of problems from passing bad checks to the missing money. But Barbara has no answers for them. She can't explain any of this. They inform her that if she will pay restitution, give back the money that she owes, she can resign and no legal action will be brought against her. In the meantime, she's letting Russ have no knowledge of any of this money trouble that she's having. Their relationship blossoms, and eventually she meets his parents. They are kind of reticent to embrace this ready-made family. I mean, Russ wants children, but he just ended a marriage. Is he ready for a full-time family? But realizing this is what Russ seems to want, they try as best as they can to accept the situation.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure he wasn't afraid to tell his parents probably that he's dating a super young girl, and then that doesn't work out, and now it's on to a widow with kids. I mean, so I guess his parents are probably like, for us, figure your shit out, bruh.
Slow down, bruh.
Yeah. It's okay to be single.
Let them sheets cool.
Yeah.
On March 17th of 1979, Barbara and Russ are married. Little wedding bells. Little birds. At Greystone Baptist Church. And this is just a few days after his divorce is finalized. It is 5 days before the 1-year anniversary of Larry Ford's death.
That's all?
That's all.
Man, there's a lot's happening in 12 months.
This story, I know it's going to be lengthy, but there's so much detail. I just feel like I have to share all of it with you so you can have a better understanding of Barbara Steger. Russ only knows that Larry died tragically, but he doesn't really have an idea that Barbara was once considered a suspect in Larry's death. The couple finds themselves on a Florida honeymoon, and they begin their life together. Finally, after a year of wrangling, Barbara gets the remaining $27,900. That's the payout from Larry's life insurance. So in total, she got $119,000.
So now she's got this other sizable chunk. Back then, that was a fair amount of that's a good amount of money now, and that's answers her, I bet, short-term money problems.
She's also receiving $800 a month in Social Security for the boys, and that eventually will increase to $1,400 a month.
Social Security death benefits for their father having died.
Yes. So that's a decent amount of money. So I'm just like, what the fuck is she doing with her money?
How
is she bouncing bad checks or, getting these insufficient fund returns on checks for her mortgage when she's got $119,000?
Well, yeah, she had a, $70,000 chunk in the beginning. And then, and it's like she milked that and didn't want to damn get a job. I mean, you should be like, okay, I got this nice nest egg. It makes us comfortable, covers emergencies, allows me to get a new home and things like that. But, I mean, you need to go out and start, get an income and plan ahead a little bit.
Well, during this time, Barbara has almost totally cut Larry's parents off from seeing the boys. Every time they call or write, request to see the boys, she has an excuse. They're going to be out of town. The boys are busy. They can't see their grandparents.
And that does nothing but harm her children.
So she's totally alienating Larry's family. Russ takes hold of family life. He adores the boys, having always wanted kids of his own. And soon after the wedding, Barbara tells Russ she's pregnant. Now, he is over the moon. But within a few weeks, she is claiming a miscarriage. Now, Russ's mother finds this odd. She knows it's too quick for Barbara to know she's pregnant, but doesn't say anything. She tucks this back. She doesn't want to spoil her son's happiness. But, it's going to linger in her brain. The couple decides it's time to upgrade houses. Russ has too many memories of his ex-wife in his house, and Barbara's house she feels is just too small for all of them. So they buy a 2-story brick home with 3 bedrooms and 3 baths, and they pay $84,500 for this house.
Wow.
I know, wouldn't that be nice?
You could still afford a home back then.
After purchasing this very nice house, they begin remodeling, and they tear out perfectly fine carpeting. They replace appliances with nicer, more expensive brands.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. But me and you talked about this the other day. It's almost like sometimes people bond over these renovation projects. Well, if you know a couple that's kind of renovated home, perfectly good bathrooms and bedrooms and things like that. And that just strikes me as weird. Save that money, bruh.
Well, I'm just like, buy what you want.
Buy what you want.
Like, I don't see buying a house and then spending hundreds of $1,000s on a remodel. I'm like, why don't you just get what you want from the beginning?
Yeah, if you have money like that, just put it all together and buy the, maybe a little newer or different home in the first place.
But I'm also really fucking lazy, and I don't want to, like, demolish a home and then, like, retile it myself.
Well, that's true.
So there's that.
So maybe people are built differently than us.
Yeah, I'd rather just, like, not do that. Barbara has expensive taste, and she wants the best of everything. It doesn't really bother Russ because he has equal spending habits.
Well, that's not going to work out.
Danger. She buys herself a light green Cadillac Seville, and Russ buys a 280Z. It seems Barbara's reasons for the marriage boil down to sex and security. Barbara aims to please Russ, so she takes up jogging and weightlifting. The hips she had always disliked melted away. She cuts her hair short, dyes it a lighter blonde. She starts tanning. She trades in glasses for contacts and is dressing in very expensive name brand clothing. She looked better than ever. Some people would even say that she was glamorous.
Well, now she's going to get even more attention, and she doesn't have a good track record for monogamy.
But Barbara kept an eye on Russ, attending every sporting event with him and making sure he wasn't wandering too far away with any female students.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Russ has got a bad habit of dating students.
In July of 1980, Russ makes the family official by adopting Jason and Brian. He's a loving, devoted father to these boys. Now, Jason is definitely Barbara's pet, and she dotes on him. Brian is treated differently, though she often rakes him over the coals. Even when he's asked to babysit his little brother, if Jason gets into some trouble or Brian says, oh, he did this or whatever, Barbara gets mad at him and is like, he's mine. You don't have any right to punish him.
Well, you have no right to ask him to babysit if he can't be a disciplinarian at some, because if you're not responsible enough, he shouldn't be doing it, or if you're not going to allow him to, kind of direct the child he's helping watch, his brother, then you shouldn't ask him to babysit.
Agreed.
Irresponsible.
Barbara soon upgrades her caddy to a Mercedes. It appears Barbara is finally living the life she always wanted. And friends are astounded at the money the couple's spending. Knowing the pair can't be earning that much money, everyone assumes Barbara's first husband either had a lot of money or that she got some huge insurance settlement. They buy a boat and a motorcycle. They're spending weekends at the lake. His parents are finally warming up to Barbara, and they adore the boys. Some of their friends even stop hanging out with the Stagers because they can't afford to keep up with their opulent lifestyle.
Wow, I got to guess she's ripping through what's the rest of that insurance money, right? It's got to be what's feeding this.
I mean, we're talking lake trips, beach trips. Barbara's parents have a beach cottage. Barbara's shopping all the time. Some of her friends would say that Barbara would go into these fancy boutiques and hold up a shirt and be like, is $200 too much for this blouse?
Oh my God.
But then would buy it anyway.
Yeah, well, and then they did both sell a home before they bought their new home, so they may have made some money off that.
Barbara and Russ have a lusty relationship. Barbara is always talking about sex and their sex life. Russ confides in his friends that Barb is almost too much to handle. She treated him like an Energizer bunny and expects him to go again and again and again.
I understand where he's coming from on that.
But if their sex life was a lot to deal with, so was the mounting debt. Russ is struggling to pay bills on his teaching and coaching salary.
Well, yeah, eventually this unchecked spending is gonna, unless you change your income level or come into an inheritance or other money, it's eventually going to catch up with you.
A family friend offered Barbara a part-time sales job at his radio station, and she's not a good salesperson. He's offering her a weekly advance on her salary. Oh, well, I'll pay you $150 a week until you start bringing in clients. So I'm kind of giving you an advance on the money you would be bringing in. But she's not bringing in clients. It costs too much to keep her on board, but he's afraid to let her go because he doesn't want to make Russ upset, because they're friends. And during a beach trip with Russ's parents, Russ's mom notices a scar on Barbara's abdomen because she's wearing a very skimpy bikini on the beach. And when asked about this, she says it was related to Jason's birth. But his mother knows better. She concludes that Barbara has had her tubes tied. And this pregnancy and miscarriage, which by now are like we're 2 in, with Barbara claiming to be pregnant and then having a miscarriage, his mother, Doris, knows these are lies. But knowing Russ is dying to have a child of his own, she knows that Barbara is just manipulating him because Barbara can't have kids.
Well, yeah, knowing your son really wants their own child, and they probably, even if they, sounds like they've taken to these step-grandchildren, you might want to, you probably likely want a grandchild of your own. And that's just a really big thing to lie about. Anytime you lie about being pregnant or lie about your kids or something, I mean, that's a huge red flag in my mind.
In fall of 1980, Barbara begins working on a book about Larry called Untimely Death, and she uses the pen name B.T. Stager. The Stagers are bragging to friends that Barbara is going to get a $400,000 advance on the book. At the radio station job, she's taken some merchandise from different businesses on credit. And so her boss at the radio station finds out that, like, she has all these outstanding debts, and she's like, oh, just bill it to the radio station.
Oh, my God. Even on top of him kind of being nice to her, giving her, whatever, $600 a month to help her out, even though she's really crappy at the job. And she's more debt on top. It's almost like she's addicted to debt on top of addicted to sex.
She finally quits the radio station, and this is much to her boss's relief because he was dying to get rid of her, but just didn't know how to break the news. The couple joins an expensive country club that has an initiation fee of $1,250, so $1,250, and $80 dues every month. Barbara went to Central Carolina Bank to take out a loan. Now, she has a letter written on Doubleday and Company letterhead, and it's signed by an editor confirming that Barbara's book has been accepted and that she was going to get paid $100,000, with $25,000 coming in 90 days, the first payment. After consulting with an attorney, the bank grants Barbara this loan. She then tells friends that same day that she made so much money that day, she doesn't have to work again for a whole year.
So the bank's using the supposed advance as collateral for this loan.
Yes.
Oh, my God. That sounds like really getting in a gray area with the finances there.
People note that the boys are very well-mannered kids, but they never speak of their biological father. In the Stager home, there's no sign of Larry, no photographs. And although Russ might be a little jealous at times, friends know that he's not the kind of man who would begrudge the children a connection to their father. And when anyone asks about Larry, they note this kind of detachment in Barbara's demeanor. She never says anything like he was a great husband, a loving father, just nothing about him.
Well, I wouldn't expect his picture plastered everywhere, but you would figure there's some sign of him there because you tragically lost your husband, and then that's your 2 sons' father. So at least in their room and things of that nature, or at least, some little small area there in the living room, you would expect to see some sign of Larry.
Well, forever,
that wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, forever I had a framed picture of my son, and he was riding on a riding lawnmower with his dad, and he's a little tiny, he's a little guy, probably not even a year old, and he's got on this cute little hat. And I had that picture forever, framed in my house, and and had relationships. And nobody ever made a comment that's you have to take that down. Or
well, if someone did,
come on,
that would be a red flag to me.
Right.
If I date a woman, she's like, oh, just because there's a picture.
Especially, if your children's mother was dead,
right,
then I would totally be on board with, we should have some sort of picture.
Well, that's
of
even
her.
more so. I would
mean,
expect there to be a more of a presence in the home with pictures and things, or even discussions and conversation. I would think it's healthy for the children. And healthy for my new wife or whatever to have these conversations. But none at all is a bit weird.
And Barbara never seemed to be writing, though she told people she was now working on a romance novel. But she still had no publication date for Untimely Death. She told people there was a movie interest, that a major Hollywood studio had reached out to her, and that she might work on a script for Untimely Death.
You got to finish one project before you start 3 more, dude.
So the $25,000 bank loan came due, and Barbara offered up a lot of excuses. When the bank's attorney begins investigating the letter once again, he calls the Durham publishing house Doubleday and Company and finds out that no one has heard of Barbara, and the editor who allegedly signed the letter doesn't exist.
Well, they dropped the ball there because they could have made that phone call when they were deciding whether or not to take this supposed advance. So somebody screwed up there, I think.
Barbara finally paid back the loan, but no one can figure out exactly how she did it, unless maybe she borrowed the money from her parents. Still owing her radio station job money on all those cash advance salary monies that she was, being given every week, and those items that she had bought on credit.
Oh my God, I thought that guy wrote that off, but no, he wants to eventually be paid for that.
The owner drew up a contract for about $3,000 that she owed him, and Barbara signed it. And by now, people suspected there was no book at all. Friends gossiped about the conflicting details in Larry's death and learned that she had all told them different stories. Deciding to put her on a spot, a couple of her friends told her that they wanted to have a big book party at the country club to celebrate its publication. With no date on the books, they decided Barbara was full of shit.
Well, I mean, eventually people are going to, just like with the radio station boss and the bank, eventually these things, you can't just keep lying. People expect at some point for there to be some kind of proof.
There was no book. One of the friends, actually the guy who owned the radio station, he checked in with the publishing company. He knew someone who worked there and learned there was no release date, nor was there a book by Barbara. Their friends began considering telling Russ about the book. They also start worrying about Russ's safety. Like, what if she does something to him, they asked. They preyed on the situation, finally concluding that somebody needed to tell Russ.
Well, yeah, if you consider yourself his friend, you have to. You have to tell him, or at least bring some of this, because it's the finances, now the gossip about what really happened to her previous husband. I mean, my God, you have to tell Russ something.
Russ is taken to a Shoney's by his friend, the fellow who owned the radio station, and also their church pastor. And the pastor actually delivers the news. And Russ just sits there, stunned, silent. Russ said, well, I guess it's lucky she's still working at the radio station. And his friend's like, man, she hasn't worked for me since March.
Oh, my God.
Little did Russ know that Barbara had been writing bad checks to Sears and Winn-Dixie for which warrants had been issued, like charging her with these bad checks. She had paid restitution and never told Russ about the legal actions. That wasn't all she'd kept from him. She'd also started a brand new job at this maintenance supply company in August and didn't tell him about that.
So that's how she's able to still get a little bit of monthly money and things like that. Well, there's just a lot of big lies here in a row. I mean, that's just not cool.
After his friends told him what they learned about Barbara, his relationship with the friends deteriorated. It was the last time they actually saw Russ. He avoided them completely. They knew he was hurt and embarrassed, and though they wanted nothing to do with Barbara, a proven liar, they still really liked Russ and wanted to be friends with him. Having trouble facing his old pals, the Stagers soon began attending another church, Rose of Sharon, which is the church that Barbara had spent her childhood. And when asked why they moved churches, she cited that Brian was being bullied by other kids. And that was the reason that they switched churches.
Well, actually, guys, all my lies started coming out, and you guys felt like you needed to tell Russ. So we went to another church.
Russ wrote a letter to the country club saying that he was withdrawing his membership because the rising dues were just too expensive. By this time, Barbara had actually begun writing a book. Her outline and first chapter were amateurish and over the top. She sent the treatment to publishers, but was rejected by every single one of them. Although the book wasn't finished, she'd written a dedication to Russell, calling him her best friend.
What is wrong with her?
I don't know. I feel like have known people in my life who were like Barbara.
Well, I mean, it's just so much energy that goes into this. Juggling things, not telling your husband all these important issues, knowing that you're involved in things that are his friends and things, and not caring. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's very toxic.
Dylan, we're going to pause for another quick commercial break, and we will be right back with more Barbara Steger story. And we are back, Dylan. Barbara tries making amends with some of their old friends, and a few of them felt pretty uncomfortable with this. At one meeting, she was confrontational, asking one of the women, "How did you find out about the book?" The friend starts explaining that the story just wasn't believable, and Barbara accepts this answer and said she was seeing a psychiatrist about her problem. Which one is what I want to know.
Well, yeah. Well, for one thing, an amateur author who's never been published, or just, I don't even think you can call yourself an amateur author at that point, is not going to get a big fat advance off of some, just some book about your life or something.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, come on.
It's just not believable.
It's not believable.
If Russ was troubled by the book deal, then he was in for a rude awakening when he would discover the money troubles the couple faced. He turned his paycheck over to Barbara and left the bookkeeping to her. So from the beginning, they'd been living on credit. Credit cards were pushed to their limits, and Barbara had gotten loans to pay off loans. What is that old saying? Robbing Peter to pay Paul?
Yep.
Barbara had upgraded cars multiple times, with payments growing larger with each new vehicle. They also had added a beach house to their portfolio.
Oh my God, they have a second home?
For 3 years, they'd been living above and beyond their means. Russ finds this hidden box under a chair in the living room, or like the family room. And so he's curious about this box, pulls it out, opens it up, and inside are invoices, bills, and notices, many he thought had long been paid. He sat on the floor growing more and more weary as he was saddled with the actual dire financial situation they were in.
I don't even know how she kept it going that long, honestly, because I don't think I could make these choices and live like this for more than like 2 or 3 months. It would catch up to me.
Barbara had not only been keeping secrets, but she was lying to him repeatedly. Barbara's response was, "You're spying on me," and refused to talk about the problem.
Yeah, finding out what our bills are and what we owe is not spying.
Russ confided in his other friends about the situation, and he was pretty desperate and crying. He called his mother. Now, she wasn't at all surprised because of the spending she'd seen. Also, Barbara had involved his mother, Doris, in some of their money problems. Before, she would ask her to go pay, like, gas bills when it was cut off, and she would be like, "Can you please go pay this and not tell Russ? Don't mention this to Russ." Russ didn't want his father to know about any of this stuff, but his mother, Doris, thought it was best, and she actually wanted to have a sit-down meeting with she, her husband, Russ, Barbara, and Barbara's parents, the Terrys, because she thought they could all sit down and brainstorm the best way to help get the couple out of the situation, get their kids out of trouble. Both sets of parents decided there were a few bills they could help, the ones that needed like immediate attention, like we can help with these right now. And James, Barbara's dad, said he could probably help the couple get a debt consolidation loan. It was just a Band-Aid solution, but they needed a bigger remedy, for this situation, this problem. They would just have to change their lifestyle completely.
Well, that's the thing. You have to address what caused the issue in the first place, or that's not going to work.
When they go with James, Barbara's dad, to the bank, and they find out that Barbara had once been Barbara Ford, they asked her, "Hey, were you previously Barbara Ford?" And she said yes, and they turned down the loan without any explanation. The bank had actually discovered Barbara's job with Security Federal Savings, where Barbara was suspected of embezzlement 4 years earlier. And again, Russ is in the dark. He knew nothing about that. So, denied. Red stamp on the loan. Nope.
Well, yeah, what do you expect?
You're turned down for what?
Credit.
Okay.
Okay.
Exactly. Russ decided to take over the family finances, and his mother told him you should get a P.O. box so all the bills can come to you directly without Barbara's influence. So he did this. They had to sell the beach house, and it went pretty quickly, and then they put their big house up for sale. It took a while to find a buyer, but they finally did. Now, eventually, they're going to move into another house. It was humiliating for both Barb and Russ because this was a downgrade to this really small, plain, tract house, and it was facing a busy road. Barbara kept the home immaculate and tidy. People described the small house as a model home. It was to be seen and shown and not to be lived in because it was just immaculate, beautifully decorated. It just looked like a model house.
Well, they got all this nice stuff she's been buying left and right for all these years. So it's almost like the decorations are nicer in the house, maybe.
Yeah, it's like Versailles furniture.
Yeah.
Like in a trailer or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like gold ceilings in their little tiny ranch house. The couple seemed to weather the financial crisis. Russ joins the National Guard to get some extra money and he becomes an athletic director at Holton Junior High School, which, along with his teaching jobs and his coaching job, it did pay a little extra money. So he takes over all of the athletics at the school. Now, the problems had cooled their sex life, and so Barbara turned to a lover to fulfill her desires and her needs, Dylan. She's got needs.
But of course, all these tensions that I helped create basically by myself for the most part, because she lied and hid things from Russ, have caused our relationship to suffer. Therefore, Barbara being Barbara, always about control and manipulation and maybe self-serving to a big degree, I'm going to go outside the relationship for love.
Her new interest was 27 years old. He was 8 years younger than Barbara. So she's a cougar. They worked together, and soon lunch hours meant something else.
It's punch hour.
Yeah, they were doing the all-you-can-eat buffet. Golden Corral.
Oh, okay.
He would later say that Barbara wanted sex from him every day, at least 3 to 4 times to be happy. She'd never felt guilty, always saying that Russ was likely having an affair too.
So in the first 6 to 8 weeks, there's a lot of high-fiving with this guy and his bros.
You think so?
Yeah, probably.
Well, Russ learned about the affair in the most disturbing way. And this is just fucked up. So Barbara's grandmother had passed away, and Barbara said she needed to run some errands before the funeral. Russ is at a car wash, taking care of the vehicle. I guess wants it to look nice, clean. They're going to go to a funeral. And while he's washing the car, he looks across the way and sees Barbara's Oldsmobile parked at the Durham County Stadium lot. Curious, he moves this, newly washed car over to the National Guard Armory. He has a good view of the stadium lot, and he just parks and waits.
Staking her out.
Soon, Barbara pulls up with a man. The pair proceeds to kiss, embrace, they're sucking face, and they are startled when Russ pulls up beside them.
Oh my gosh.
This guy, Barbara gets out of the car, this dude completely freaks out, drives off as fast as he can. Yeah. So soon, Barbara has smoothed things over with Russ, but she continues seeing her lover. She finally broke off the affair after 3 weeks, has gone by. She's still seeing this dude. And then she finally breaks up with him and says, I'm going to focus on my marriage.
Okay.
Barbara begins a new job at Duke University Medical Center as a secretary in the Department of Utilization and Review. Now, it pays more money, has excellent benefits. She impresses her bosses with efficiency, ambition, and creativity. Now, she's telling these people at work that she has the most amazing marriage. Every weekend coming back, talking about her husband, bragging about how awesome he is. He bought me this great gift.
Yeah, could you imagine her with social media life? It would be so perfect, the life she would present online.
Such a curated
Definitely.
Facebook page.
Yep.
Yeah. But Russ was not exactly on board. He confided in his mother about Barbara's affair, And by this time, the couple was in more debt as Barbara had traded vehicles, she put in new hardwood floors, bought new appliances for the kitchen, joined another country club that was kind of close to their new house so that the boys could ride, their bikes, go to the swimming pool, that kind of thing. His mother encouraged him to leave Barbara, but Russ said he just couldn't hurt the boys like that. They were his boys now.
Well, that's noble.
He then turned to his first wife, Jolynn, and they'd always been friends, and they had exchanged like Christmas cards over the years, that kind of thing. Well, they had sort of struck up a closer friendship, and Russ is turning to her with his troubles. Jolynn knew Russ wanted a divorce from Barbara, but he would tell her he loved the boy so much and he just couldn't bring himself to leave. He also told her that Larry shot himself cleaning a gun, but he was beginning to wonder about that. Russ told Jolynn if anything ever happened to him, he's like, if anything happens to me, I want you to please look into it. I know that sounds crazy, but would you do that for me?
Oh my gosh.
He even offered to reconcile with Jolynn, but she turned him down. She was like, oh, we're way better as friends. But he's like, man, I made a huge mistake, like, in our marriage. I'd give anything to have you back.
Well, he probably thinks about back to that house when he first met Barbara. His wife had just left over his cheating on her and stuff of that nature. So, yeah, I guess he probably has a lot of regrets.
Regrets. But he threw himself back into the relationship, both agreeing he and Barbara were going to rededicate themselves to God. The marriage began improving, and they began to dream new dreams together. By 1985, the couple decided to buy a new house, something a little nicer and more contemporary. And it wasn't a big house, but Barbara loved it. His parents were furious.
Well, it's almost like they're heading back down that financial ruin path. Because they both sets of parents worked so hard to get them back stable.
Yep.
Oh, my God. Yeah, because I'm like, what the hell? Here we go again.
Exactly. Well, the Stagers paid a deposit, and they sold their house pretty quickly, like much sooner than they expected. Barbara was promoted once again, and the perk of her new job was a flexible schedule. So she decided she wanted to return to college, that it was important to finish her degree so she could have a better job, make more money for the family. She enrolled at North Carolina Central University, and Russ was already attending class there. He was trying to earn a master's degree. Barbara continued making excuses to Larry's parents about why the boys couldn't visit. I mean, this has been going on for years.
Yeah,
she has been keeping these boys from their grandparents.
It's not cool.
But Barbara felt, with this goal in mind, that she was moving in a positive direction. Russ seemed happier too. He was working once again at Durham High School, coaching baseball and football, and he was also a driver's ed instructor. So things seemed to be going well. Brian also joined the National Guard alongside Russ. He hoped to win an ROTC scholarship. He had thought about going to West Point, but truly wanted to go to flight school. So keeping busy with work and school proved good for Barbara. Russ did finish his master's degree, and Barbara was given a new job with the new director of the surgical nursing department. She was doing really, really well in school. She maintained a 3.7 GPA, and she really loved this new job. It was perfect for her, and she was really good, at what she was doing. But by 1987, spending was once again catching up with the Stagers. They bought new cars, Brian was driving now, and both were wearing Rolex watches, totaling about $4,000.
That's just so ridiculous.
How many teachers do you know that wear a fucking Rolex?
Well, I mean, if you've had a history of, being in financial trouble and things like that, and you just got regular jobs, you probably shouldn't have Rolexes, period. I mean, it doesn't matter what job you have. I mean, come on. That's just ridiculous to invest that much, which that's just people's like, oh, you shouldn't tax the ultra rich. And you're like, oh, have you looked at the stuff the ultra rich does? Yeah, they can be taxed a little bit more, bub. But yeah, I mean, that's like me and you right now buying jewelry that costs $4,000 or $5,000. It would make absolutely no sense.
I have no interest in that either.
Well, I'm not a jury guy.
I mean, I'm not really a jewelry kind of gal. I'll buy some tattoos. You can get me those.
Okay, but I'm not going to get you $5,000 worth.
Well, that's a damn shame. I'm going to divorce you. So, they just bought this new house. They, once again, started a remodeling project on this house. They are buying new furniture, new appliances. Russ, once again, buys a new boat, a 19-foot boat.
Well, no wonder. And then their parents come around after having helped them so much, and they got some bling-bling on their wrists.
Barbara is coming into work wearing new clothes almost every day, like never wearing the same outfit twice. She's bragging all the time about new gizmos and gadgets that she purchased over the weekend, all the new stuff she bought for the boys. And people, once again, couldn't figure out where all this money was coming from. I mean, they were earning around maybe $45,000 a year together with all of their various sources of income. But still, the spending fell way beyond that. The couple refinanced their house. They took out $50,000 life insurance policies. They got $20,000 in cash from that refinance, but it was barely enough to temporarily save them from all these bills. And even though, they had to borrow this money and refinance and all this, they go back to the bank a week later and get a $4,500 loan so they can buy Brian a new truck.
Yeah, so, I mean, she kind of hid this kind of thing. But also, from Russ in the first time go around with the finances, but you still got to be sensible and know that this is above our means.
Well, he's got to know.
You know how much money you make.
Yeah, exactly.
And this time, it sounds like he's even more involved, just like, like the joining the country club. Now it's ridiculous spending, and they're both doing it, which is really bad because there's not one to kind of rein the other one in.
I know. Well, you have an income. I have an income. And together, we have a pretty decent amount of money coming in every month.
Yeah, it's like $7 million a year.
Right.
But we live like we're poor.
But we know, even though we know we live at a higher, I guess, income level than most people in our county, like we're high above the median income.
Yeah.
We know we don't have money to go, upgrade new cars every year and buy boats and Rolex watches.
No, if one or the other of us did start buying these lavish things, we're going to be like, what the hell? Where's this coming from? How are you affording this?
I know Dylan's like, do you really need another $30 makeup palette? Do you really need that lipstick?
I know you like it.
He's like, that's rich people bread. I can't buy that.
Well, yeah, I'll get the rich people bread and cheese now.
Dylan would be like the cheapest millionaire ever.
Do you really think so?
Yeah. He'd be like, no, you can't buy that name brand cheese. It's too much.
Yeah, we're not going to buy $50 cheese just because we got money. I mean, come on.
You don't want to buy some Stilton? Come on.
$7, $8 cheese is fine. That's a good cheese.
She was still borrowing more loan money to pay for debts throughout 1987. She wrote checks to stores like Belk's and Ivy's. Do you remember Ivy's department store?
Well, earlier you were talking about Winn-Dixie, Sears and Roebuck, which is basically gone now. And it was just funny because a lot of these stores, I don't remember Ivy's.
Ivy's was like a Belk or a Dillard.
A Goodies?
Like a department store.
Which is also gone from here now.
Because I remember Ivy's being in the mall when I was a kid. Like my mom bought a lot of my clothes there.
What's that one in Silva?
Peebles,
because you said that's actually a chain.
She was spending money, like I said, at stores, Belk, Ivy, a lot of these clothing boutiques.
But here she is juggling
high-end
again, juggling.
Well, all of these checks bounced. She wrote 42 bad checks during a 4-month period. The payments on her Ford Mustang, because now she's upgraded to a Mustang, they went unpaid. Her car payments, she's forgetting about those. Russ was growing disillusioned with his coaching job. I mean, he's starting to get burned out. But he was an excellent soldier in the National Guard. He was promoted to staff sergeant by 1987, and he was earning about $187 a month. He signed up for $50,000 in life insurance with the Guard, so that raised his total to about $165,000 in life insurance through 5 different policies, which was enough to ensure that Barbara and the boys would be taken care of if anything happened. Like, it was enough to pay the mortgage off the house and that kind of thing.
He should have never made himself that valuable dead.
On Thursday, January 28th, 1988, Russell took a sick day from school so that he could run to Fort Bragg and pick up some equipment for the Guard unit. He stopped by Supply that day and got 2 Colt .45 pistols because he was a member of the National Guard's pistol team. He and a fellow soldier were planning to get together and practice over the weekend for an upcoming pistol meet. On Friday, Russ met up with a friend to work out. His buddy noted that Russ seemed to be a lot happier than he had been in a while. He didn't go shooting as he had planned that weekend. Instead, he accompanied Barbara to Virginia, to the mountains, because her parents were thinking about buying a farm there. On Sunday, the pair taught Sunday school classes, and he spent the afternoon playing golf with some buddies. This was also Super Bowl Sunday. It was the Redskins versus the Broncos. Russ was going to watch the game with his parents at his house, so he went with Jason and Barbara to pick up a party tray at Red Lobster.
Ooh.
Barbara paid $19.85 with a check, and guess what?
It looked like a rubber ball.
It did. It bounced all the fucking way away. Way away.
It was just bouncing down the road.
See? The earth is flat, or that ball wouldn't bounce like that.
Look at that ball. Look at it. Look at it rolling along the floor right there.
They watched the game at their house. Of course, his parents came over. And during the course of the game, Barbara kept snuggling up to her husband, like trying to hold his hand. And his mother noticed that Russ seemed to like totally ignore Barbara. Like he just was not into it at all. And Barbara was chattering about her boss, Tim, and how she was afraid he was going to get let go and then she wouldn't have a job and what would she do about work. And she just kept going on. And it was so much that his parents were like, I just wish she would have shut up. We're trying to watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Russ was a lifelong Cowboys fan, and he was pulling for the Broncos. When his team was losing, he decided that he didn't want to watch the end of the game, and he's just going to go to bed.
Also, for those who don't know, Cowboys and Redskins are in the same division. So you're like, if you love the Redskins, you're going to be wanting the Broncos to win. I mean, if you love the Cowboys.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks for that. I had no idea.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, that's. I wasn't mansplaining.
No, I really didn't know that.
I was just saying that's what it is.
But I do know people who are Cowboys fans and that they don't like the Redskins.
Well, that's
and the Redskins fans hate the Cowboys.
Yes,
kind of thing.
So that's why he's pulling for the Broncos, because that's his division rival for his team.
Well, thank you for explaining that, because I have absolutely no interest whatsoever in football.
No,
I don't give a fuck. But thank you.
It won't be relevant.
Anyway, he's like, I have to go, I've got work in the morning. I got to get up early, be at school. Fuck this game. I don't want to watch it. I'm going to go to bed. So everybody
Well, he
leaves.
seems to be in a bit of a mood anyway.
Yeah. Well, on the morning of February 1st, 1988, a 911 call came in about 6:08 a.m. A child asked for an ambulance and wanted it to be sent to Fox Drive. The child said his father had a gun and it went off. The boy said his mother had informed him to call for help. So first responders are dispatched, much like a decade earlier, to a residential neighborhood, and this is where the Stager family lives. Russ Stager was discovered, much like Larry Ford, in his bedroom, lying in bed. A pool of blood was, kind of pooling or billowing under the pillow where he lay his head. Russ was still breathing. He was bleeding from his mouth, his nose, his eyes were rolled back in his head. He would die if the bleeding in his brain wasn't stopped. So during the commotion, his wife Barbara stood by watching these first responders try to work with Russ, and she had no reaction. As a matter of fact, while they're trying to save Russ's life, Barbara is changing clothes and just going on telling paramedics how afraid she is of guns. And she just wished he didn't have them in the house.
So not hysterical, not, oh my God, please save my husband, not anything. But like actually just, yeah. I can't even believe she's using the same chick with the gun and accidental gun discharge.
But wait, there's more, Dylan. When asked what had occurred, Barbara told them that Russ had slept with a gun under his pillow. He had been hearing noises outside their home for several nights, and that she had merely tried to remove the gun, and it went off. She had heard Jason get up to take a shower, and thought Russ might believe it was a burglar or an intruder, so she tried to take the gun without waking him. The .25 caliber pistol that Barbara claimed to move was still lodged between these two pillows on the bed.
Okay.
He was rushed to Duke University Medical Center, where it was determined that the bullet had gone through Russ's brain and it was stuck in the front part of his skull.
Oh, no.
He was brain dead. And at 12:35 p.m., Russ Steger was pronounced deceased. The end. I'm just kidding.
Well, I was going to say they didn't let her make the decision to pull the plug, right?
Sorry, I had to move my mouse. My wireless mouse is dead, and I keep trying to use it, and it's taking forever.
I know I should have fixed that for you.
You should have. Look
I
at you.
asked.
While word spread through the community, Russ's parents and friends were in mourning. An officer with the Durham County Sheriff's Office was assigned to the case. Barbara was more than willing to speak to the officer. She invited him back to the house and told him she'd show him exactly what happened. For a widow, Barbara didn't seem to be at all upset about the loss of her husband. I mean, and this is a really violent, tragic way, right?
Again.
The initial finding was accidental death, but something about Barbara's story just didn't sit right with detectives. Again, like the death of Larry Ford.
Well, for one, it just seems ridiculous. I mean, I've never ever heard someone even try to lie and use that story, that someone had a gun under a pillow sleeping. I know people do that, which seems very dangerous to me. But, put a gun under your pillow. Well, I mean, it sounds ridiculous in the first place, let alone her behavior. And Lord, knows if they know of, I doubt they do, of the, incident a decade ago. But yeah, it just seems ridiculous to me. I would never believe that.
Well, like I said, she invited them back to the house and told them she would walk them through a demonstration. They videotaped this. And it's a very awkward, strange video.
You can see it?
You can find it
View it on...
Yeah, well, there's some clips on a Forensic Files episode.
Yeah.
And I think you can find the clips on YouTube.
Oh.
Like from the Forensic Files episode.
I'm going to check that out.
Jolynn, Russ's first wife, was instrumental in solving Russ's death. She insisted that she speak with the detectives, informing them that she had never known Russell to sleep with a gun. Jolynn also substantiated what they'd heard from other relatives, that Russ was a very heavy sleeper. Another surprise was when Jolynn explained the financial problems the Stegers had been facing and how Barbara had been hiding bills from Russ. She also told them that Barbara's first husband had died of similar mysterious circumstances. Jolynn brought down another bombshell as she told them that Russ had tried to get back together with her, that he wanted to leave Barbara, and that the boys had been the only reason for staying in the marriage.
Well, I'm sure all this would interest detectives because, a lot of that money, possible, if she found out he tried to get back with his ex, she just named off a couple, 3 motives.
Well, of course, the detectives are like, yeah, we'll take this information, not really letting on like surprised, but they run with it. They didn't know anything about Larry Ford's death or that he had died from a gunshot wound while Barbara was in the house.
Right.
So they're on the phone, they're pulling records, making calls, interviewing people. There had been no autopsy in Russ's death, nor had the gun been checked for fingerprints. This detective orders an autopsy be performed on Russell and also requested copies of Larry Ford's death case files. The results of the autopsy, pretty shocking. The gun had come from above and didn't fit Barbara's story about sliding it from under a pillow.
She didn't even have the good sense to shoot him from below?
No. Digging deeper, they learned Barbara had multiple affairs, that she had forged all these loan applications, credit card applications without Russ knowing, and had gotten them into this crazy financial trouble. The detective learned about this phony book deal and discovered, like with Larry, Barbara would collect a big payout from life insurance. This one nearing almost $200,000.
Oh, yeah.
It was like $165,000. So After compiling evidence against Barbara, a grand jury handed down an indictment on April 18th of 1988 for first-degree murder. She was arrested the same day. Still, without a solid motive for why Barbara would shoot him, they began digging into financial records, and they learned that Barbara had forged a check with Russ's name on it to pay off a loan. Now, the day he was killed was the day that this loan was going to come due, and it was also the day that his bank statement would come out. So she'd basically killed him in order to hide this forgery, they believed.
Or that's on top of everything else, the one last, I have to do this now because this is going to come out.
Well, and they felt like if he found out about this forgery, that would be it. That he was already at the end of his rope with Barbara, and that one more thing he would leave her.
So, killing him would solve all her issues. Her financial issues. She wouldn't have to fess up to him about what she's done. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty strong motive there.
Jason, a 7th grader, wrote a letter to the editor of their local newspaper stating that his mother was innocent and being railroaded for this accidental death. And Barbara seemed very proud of this, that her son had written this on her behalf. On Monday, March 1st, 1989, Barbara Steger went to trial. The prosecution had tons of evidence. I mean, they had records, bank statements, bills. They showed that videotape reenactment of Barbara herself, like demonstrating how the gun had gone off and then being like, oh, no, that's not right. And then like moving to recreate it because she just couldn't get her story straight.
Because it didn't make sense.
Yeah. The murder weapon, which showed they had that murder weapon, it showed that the trigger was really stiff and that it took some, serious pressure.
It's not a hair trigger. It's not been,
at all.
It's not been modified. It's not like, yeah. Okay.
The judge allowed details of Larry Ford's death to be introduced.
Well, I mean, anytime a jury hears you had a spouse die of similar circumstances in the past, yeah, I mean, you go ahead and kiss the baby.
They also talked about her insurance payout with Larry's death. I mean, it showed a pattern of behavior. The prosecution introduced documents showing that Barbara had forged 2 checks on Russell's account the day of his death, trying to clear out the money in his account before it would be frozen.
Oh, my gosh.
So the day he died, she was trying to take all the rest of his money. A surprise twist came from the deceased himself, Russ Steger. Now, this is juicy, Dylan.
Ooh, give me the tea.
A student at Durham High School found a cassette tape kind of hidden in the school's locker room. Now, the tape was about 9 minutes in length, and this student had taken it home and listened to it with his mother, and then I guess the mother was like, we got to turn this in. It was Russ's voice detailing the days before his death, and it started on that January the 27th. He said that Barbara had given him some pills for a sinus headache, and that he woke up the following day feeling just really terrible. Again, Barbara had given him another dose, and this time Russ took these pills to a pharmacy, and he was told they are sleeping pills. So he was questioning why Barbara would be giving him sleeping pills, because she had literally woken him up from sleep at 4 a.m. Here, you should take these. So he's like, why is she waking me up when I'm asleep to give me sleeping pills?
You're not up complaining about anything. Why are you giving me any medicine, let alone sleeping pills when I'm asleep?
He also mentioned that a Visa credit card bill had not shown up in December or January, and Barbara had told him it was just some kind of mix-up. He then goes on to talk about the day he caught Barbara in another man's arms, which would have been right before grandmother's funeral. The audio tape also mentioned numerous unpaid bills, instances when police had shown up their house with warrants for Barbara writing bad checks, and how she was scheming to take out loans to pay other loans. Now, the defense tried to claim that this audio tape was fabricated. They called character witnesses who described Barbara again as this good Christian, loving mother, excellent homemaker. It took jurors only 44 minutes to find Barbara guilty, with a unanimous verdict. When read, Barbara's response was dramatic, hysterical tears, gasping. During sentencing, there was a split vote, 6-6, on whether Barbara should be sentenced to death.
Oh.
Now, in the courtroom, the jury had once again reached a 100% verdict on the sentencing, saying that Barbara should be given the death penalty. Now, she was taken crying to North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women in Raleigh. She, while there, was a model prisoner, and the automatic appeal, because North Carolina, if you're given a death penalty, they automatically appeal the conviction or that sentence. So her conviction, they get this automatic appeal. Her conviction, I'm sorry, I'll get that out. I've been doing a lot of talking. It's upheld, but she was given another shot at sentencing. So Barbara goes or undergoes some psychological testing, but they don't find any significant psychological disorders. They note she has some fears of rejection and immaturity, along with low self-esteem.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't?
But no psychological problems
nothing
or mental
significant.
illness.
Yeah, no reason she can't be held accountable for her actions.
Her sons, who were both adults at this point, testified on their mother's behalf, and they claimed that the audio tape was not Russell. Now, this time around, Barbara is sentenced to life in prison. So she began serving her life sentence August 31st of 1993. She was denied parole in 2005 and again in 2009, 2012, 2015, and 2018.
Oh, wow.
She remains incarcerated at the North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women in Raleigh. And today I used a resource, a book by Jerry Bledsoe called Before He Wakes, along with this episode of Forensic Files, in which that detective at the end, the second detective who solved the Russ case, calls her a lying-ass bitch.
No, really?
And I was like, that's what we need to call this, the lying-ass bitch case.
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems pretty cut and dry. It seems pretty obvious what happened. Poor Larry, I think was killed. And it sounds like she pushed it long as she could with Russ. And eventually, the answer to all her problems would be him dead.
Also, there are a lot of newspaper articles about this trial. It was covered, like a 3-ring circus. And it made court TV back in the day. So a lot of information out there if you want to look into this lying-ass bitch, Barbara Steger.
Well, is that how you made this 6-hour podcast? Because there's a lot of information?
Dude, I for the first time hit a 2-hour mark on Mountain Murders.
I think that's a good thing.
2-hour podcast. Well, Dylan, we could have split this up into 2 episodes.
No.
But I was like, fuck it. We're in it to win it. It's 2021. It's a brand new year. And we're going to bring you a brand new podcast.
Yeah, so we know that...
Energetic.
Yeah,
detailed.
We've talked about how some of these carry over kind of long. We hope you guys like it. And sometime, and there's just a lot of information. Heather does a deep dive, and you know what? It's okay. It's our podcast, and if you want to listen, you get to hear a whole lot of information.
Yeah.
Yes, and if you want to contact us or say hi, just hit us up at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
Okay, well, you know what? I've done a lot of talking in 2 hours, and I'm fucking tired. So I'm going to peace out. I hope everybody has a great week. Enjoy 2021. Hopefully it's going to be amazing for us all.
Oh, my gosh, he's got no room for bullshit. We're going to have to catch y'all later.
Yeah, bye,
I'm going to
guys.
put this little thing to bed.
Peace out.